The source of the conflicts in Eastern DRC is in the colonial era. Why blaming Rwanda and Kagame instead of Belgians, Colonials? What is the history of colonization and the source of conflict in the Eastern DRC? The history of colonization in the Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo, DRC, is deeply intertwined with the broader history of European imperialism in Africa, and it has contributed to lasting conflicts in the region. Here's a brief overview of how colonization and subsequent events led to conflict in the Eastern DRC. 1. Colonial era, late 19th century to 1960. King Leopold II and the Congo Free State. In the late 1800s, King Leopold II of Belgium claimed personal control over the vast area that would later become the DRC. He established the Congo Free State in 1885, which was privately run by him as a colony for exploiting natural resources, particularly rubber and ivory. This exploitation led to widespread violence, forced labor, and the deaths of millions of Congolese people. Belgian colonialism in 1908, the Belgian government took over from Leopold, and the area became a formal Belgian colony known as the Belgian Congo. The colonial state was still characterized by resource extraction, with little development or political rights for the local population. Eastern regions like North and South Kivu were particularly impacted by this exploitation, especially some parts of Rwandan land that became Congolese land, as they were rich in minerals and other. 2. Post-independence turmoil, 1960-1970. Independence in 1960, the DRC gained independence from Belgium on June 30, 1960, but the transition was chaotic. The central government struggled to assert control over the entire country, and various regions, particularly the East, saw political instability and power struggles. The Katanga secession crisis. Shortly after independence, the wealthy mineral-rich province of Katanga in the southeast declared its secession, which was backed by Belgian interests. While this crisis was largely focused on the southeast, the instability it created affected the eastern regions. The Cold War and proxy conflicts. The DRC became a battleground for Cold War superpowers. Western powers, including the US and Belgium, supported the government of Joseph Mobutu, who later became dictator Mobutu Sese Seko, while other factions were backed by Soviet-aligned forces. This external influence further fueled instability. 3. The First and Second Congo Wars. 1990s-2000s. One of the key turning points in the conflict in Eastern DRC was the aftermath of genocide against Tutsi. In 1994, genocide against Tutsi, a number of approximate over 1 million of Tutsi were killed by the Hutu-led government. After the genocide, many Hutu perpetrators fled to the Eastern DRC, particularly in the Kivu region, creating tensions with local Tutsis, who were often perceived as sympathizers of the Second Congo War, 1998-2003, has started, and Interahamwe have started invading and fighting multi-sided conflict involving multiple neighboring countries, including Rwanda, Uganda, Burundi, etc. The eastern regions, particularly North and South Kivu, were sites of fierce battles, and various armed groups emerged, including local and foreigners-backed forces, with many victims succumbing to violence, disease, and starvation. 4. Post-war conflict and continuing instability. 2003 present. Ongoing armed groups. Even after the official end of the Second Congo War, conflict has persisted in the east. Various armed groups continue to operate in the Kivu regions, including the M23 and the Allied Democratic Forces, ADF, an Islamist militia, and FDRL made of Interahamwe militias that continue its genocide against Tutsi Rwandophones. Except M23 fighting for the safety and rights of Congolese Tutsi, Rwandophones being chased and killed in Congo, all other groups fight over the control of resources. Ethnic and political tensions. the complex ethnic landscape in eastern DRC has fueled further violence. The manipulation of ethnic identities for political and economic gain, combined with competition over access to resources such as minerals and land, has prolonged the conflict. Resource exploitation. The region remains rich in natural resources, including gold, coltan, and tin, which are highly valuable on the international market. Control over these resources has been a major driver of conflict, with both local militias and foreign powers seeking to control them. Rwandan influence. Rwanda's involvement in eastern DRC has been controversial, with accusations that it supports certain rebel groups in order to secure access to resources and maintain influence in the region, which is not true because M23 is made of Congolese-speaking Kinyarwanda who are fighting for their right to their land made Congolese by the colonization. 5. International and regional dynamics. The DRC's ongoing conflict in the east has been influenced by the involvement of neighboring countries, Burundi, and European countries, especially Belgium. The UN has had a peacekeeping mission, MONUSCO, in the DRC for many years, but it has faced challenges in effectively stabilizing the region due to the presence of armed groups and the complex political dynamics. In summary, the history of colonization and the subsequent conflicts in the eastern DRC are rooted in the legacy of Belgian colonial rule, which left the country politically and economically fragmented. The introduction of ethnic and political divisions, exacerbated by the Cold War and external intervention, set the stage for the violent conflicts of the 1990s and early 2000s. Even today, the region is plagued by armed militias, resource exploitation, and regional rivalries, with little progress toward lasting peace. So now the question is, why do Westerners blame President Kagame and his government instead of the Belgian colonizers who took a portion of Rwandan land, along with its people, and transferred it to the DRC, leaving them now being displaced as Rwandans from their own homeland? The question touches on a complex historical and political issue that involves both colonial legacies and contemporary geopolitics. Here's a breakdown. Colonial legacy and the role of Belgian colonization. Belgian colonial rule significantly impacted the dynamics of Rwanda and the broader Great Lakes region. The Belgians introduced a rigid ethnic classification system that categorized Rwandans into three groups: Hutu, Tutsi, and Twa. This system exacerbated existing divisions, with the Tutsi minority being favored by the colonial administration, while the Hutu majority was marginalized. This historical manipulation of ethnic identities laid the groundwork for later ethnic tensions. The borders that were drawn by European powers often disregarded existing ethnic or cultural lines, leading to situations like the one you've described, where some Rwandan people ended up in what is now the Democratic Republic of the Congo, DRC. These people, often referred to as Tutsi Rwandophones, speak Kinyarwanda, but have been part of Congo due to the artificial borders established by colonial powers. Focus on Kagame and Rwanda. In modern times, the tendency of some Westerners to focus blame on Paul Kagame and Rwanda, rather than Belgian colonialism, is often driven by several factors. Contemporary politics. Paul Kagame has been a central figure in Rwanda since the 1994 genocide. Under his leadership, Rwanda has seen significant economic growth and stability. The way that Rwanda is growing economically attracts negativity of colonizers' spirit of making it dependent, accusing it to be behind conflicts in DRC. The international community sometimes focuses on current leaders like Kagame as a way of addressing the ongoing political dynamics in the region. The 1994 genocide against Tutsi and its aftermath. The 1994 genocide against Tutsi, in which approximately 1 million Tutsis and moderate Hutus were killed by Hutu extremists, has cast a long shadow over Rwandan politics. The 1994 genocide against Tutsi. The role of Kagame's Rwandan Patriotic Front, RPF, in ending it have all drawn significant international attention, often overshadowing the colonial causes. Simplification of history. It's common in political discourse for complex historical situations to be simplified. The colonial legacy is often seen as something that happened a long time ago and is less emphasized in the context of current geopolitics. This allows contemporary leaders and conflicts to be blamed instead of addressing long-standing historical injustices. The question of Congolese, Tutsi and Rwandan borders. The situation of the Tutsi, Rwandophones in the DRC, is another aspect that complicates things. The Congolese Tutsi have been caught up in the broader political instability of the region, particularly in the DRC's eastern provinces. The fact that these populations speak Kinyarwanda and have ties to Rwanda complicates both their integration into Congo and their relationship with Rwanda. The conflict in the DRC has seen accusations of Rwandan involvement in supporting Tutsi militias, which often leads to a focus on Rwanda rather than addressing the root cause of the issue, the legacy of colonial border creation. In summary, while Belgian colonialism did indeed lay the groundwork for the tensions that exist today, the blame placed on Kagame and his government is more often tied to modern political issues. The aftermath of the 1994 genocide against Tutsi. The colonial legacy is often overlooked because it is seen as a distant historical cause, while current leaders and conflicts are more directly visible and relevant to international discourse.